Hello, and welcome to SDS2 Online Basic Training. This 4-day training class will cover the necessary information for you to start your own jobs, create members and material in your model, create details for these items, as well as erection view details, and load these onto sheets to be able to plot and generate PDFs. In this first video, we will go over the requirements for this training class and what is expected from you to complete the class. We will be covering the high-level concepts when working with SDS2, how to get started with SDS2, as well as giving an overview of the home screen and what is available on the main detailing station's home screen. This training will involve videos and lessons that will be made available for 30 days. This course will involve independent learning. You'll be using the online resources to learn the material by watching videos, taking quizzes, and then applying the information you learn into your model. The requirements for the completion of this course include having SDS2 2021 for India installed on your computer and up and running. You will be required to complete the videos, quizzes, and applications in the order they are provided in the course, as well as completing all videos and quizzes. Our lesson 1 is going to be our basic concepts. We will talk about our central database theory, go over the basic workflow of SDS2. We'll then learn how to create a new project and change into other projects, and then we'll take a look at our home screen. So to get started, we will start with our central database theory. The central database theory is about making sure that your model is 100% accurate to what you need it to be. Having an incomplete model will lead to incomplete outputs to other fields like BIM coordination, MRP outputs, CNC, and other things. If we wanted to, we could import 3D models into SDS2 that have been exported from other softwares. You can use file types such as IFC files or CIS2 files, and you can bring them into your SDS2 3D model as usable members. There's some more file types that you can bring in as well, and we'll take a look at this later on in the course. You can also use a tool called parametrics, which are basically a script wrote inside of Python that can be run within our modeling window. Using parametrics will allow you to do things like add material, add members, adjust members, and perform other repetitive tasks. We will do some work with parametrics later on in the training. From our model is where our drawings are going to come from. So as you can see, the arrow is only pointing from the model to Drawing Editor. So any change that is made inside of the model has to be seen inside of Drawing Editor. If you make a change inside of Drawing Editor, you will not see that change be reflected automatically inside of the model. So again, the 3D model must be close to 100% accurate as possible. Next, from our Drawing Editor, as well as our 3D model, is where we can go to generate our reports. Reports can be ran from either direction and can be ran for things such as your field bolt summary, your material summaries, or things like your surface area. You also have the option to generate either from the model or Drawing Editor your MRP export types. So you can generate files such as KISS files, XML files, or if you were wanting to export into another software like FabSuite or FabTrol, MRP exports is where you'd want to do that. From Drawing Editor, you can generate your 2D drawings such as DXF, DWG, or your PDF type files. And you can also generate CNC files from the model. CNC is another export type that will always come directly from your model. So again, you want your model to be as close to 100% accurate as it can be, and that will ensure that your CNC file exports are as accurate as they can be. Lastly, from the 3D model at the end of the project, you can export your 3D model. So if you want to send your 3D model that you made inside of SDS2 to a customer or to a contractor, you can choose to do so, and you can send them an IFC file, a CIS2 file, or you could send them a drawing file or a DXF file. Next, we'll be taking a look at our basic workflow of SDS2. The first and most important step is going to be our setup. Setup is always done at the beginning of the job. or copying setup from another job to use. This is the most important part of starting a job. Making sure your setup is correct to start with will prevent wrong information to be generated within our model. From our setup, we can go into our 3D modeling. So this is where you'd get your grids and your views, main members, your miscellaneous materials into your model, exactly where and how you need them to be. And then from our modeling, we can go into our detailing. So once the steel is modeled in, you can then start detailing the erection views, the member details, and then the submaterial details. And then from there, you can clean up your details and you can get them onto sheets to be able to plot and submit. And you would do that inside of Drawing Editor. So this concept is true even when working on certain sections of a job. You would still want your setup to be done first, but then modeling and detailing could happen in sections as needed for approval or submittals. And then from Drawing Editor, you can go in and you can plot, and you can also run any reports that you may need from your model. At the bottom, we have a note that says setup is the first and most critical step in the whole procedure. It affects the outcome of the entire project. Next, we will be opening up SDS2 and learning how to create a new project and change into another project. We'll be setting up some initial settings for our project, such as our job name, our fabricator name, setting our default units, our default design method, going over our approximate number of members, job north, our joist manufacturer, and our default shapefile. At this point, we're ready to get our new project created. So if you have an icon on your desktop, let's go ahead and open up SDS2. You can just click on the SDS2 2021 icon, and you'll be greeted with this select job window. The reason we're greeted with this window is because we don't have any jobs created in SDS2 currently. If you did have a job created, you would go directly to the home screen of SDS2. Right now, we want to create a new project, so if you are at the home screen, all you need to do is click on the job in the upper left corner of the home screen. You'll get the select job window, and then once you're here, we can go ahead and click on New, and we'll be greeted with our Create New Project window. So the first thing we can do here is give the job a name. In this case, I'm going to call mine 2021 Online Training. And then going through this window, the first option we have right below the job name is the option to copy job from. If this option is checked on, this will allow us to select a job at which we want to copy the job information from. So this would allow us to bring up the job settings from project to project. If the copy job is checked on, the fabricator name will automatically populate from the previous job. In this case, we're not going to have that checked on, so we can change the fabricator name to be whatever we want. In this case, I'm just going to click inside of this field, and it's going to automatically populate with to be the same as my job name, which is going to stay as 2021 Online Training. And then below that, we have the same option to copy fabricator from, if we would choose to do so. Below that, we have our project information. So the first thing we have under here is units. Do we want to set our project up to be using imperial units or metric units? In this case, we're just going to choose metric units, which is going to be in millimeters. Below that, we have an option to specify what our round cut dimensions are. We can specify 1 millimeter or 5 millimeter, and this applies when the primary dimension units are set to metric. It sets the rounding method that Connection Design will apply when setting lengths and widths of shear plates, bent plates, end plates, auto base cap plates, stiffeners, and some other things. Below that, we have our design method. Depending on what your license is set up for, you may see some different things inside of here. What these are up top for me is our ASD 15th through the 9th edition. We have some LRFD codes, For the sake of this project, what we're going to want to do is find the India design method and choose India. Next option is our flavor. This applies to our custom properties, and for this training we will not worry about what our flavor is set to. We're just going to go ahead and leave that set to default. Next is our approximate number of members. The note down here says the approximate number of members should be slightly larger than the number of members you expect to have on the job. To look at this further, I'm going to bring a slide back up. So for our approximate number of members, we want to estimate the approximate number of individual members on the job, not the grouped quantities. We want to increase our estimated number of members by 10%. The larger the amount used, the more disk space allocated, which means the slower the job may run in SDS2. And if you don't enter in enough members, the program will prompt you for file size changes. So if you enter in 1,000, for example, and you go over that mark, SDS2 will prompt and tell you that you need to allocate more space for more members. For this project, we have our approximate number of members set to 1,000, which is going to be plenty for what our project is going to be. So I'm just going to leave that set to 1,000. Degrees for job north, we will leave this set to 0 for this project. Our joist manufacturer, we can specify to either be default, K&M, or Volcraft. For this training, we're going to leave that set to default as well. Next is our shape file source. If we were copying our job information from, and we have a specific job, we do have the option to use the source project information, or we can browse to use the other shapefile source. In this case, we're going to use the other shapefile source, and I'm going to browse. And the file that we want to be using is the India_all file, which should be set by default when you choose your design method. But if you're not seeing that down there, you want to go ahead and browse and click to the India_all file and say open. And then the last thing we have is our template source. For the sake of this training, we're not going to worry about templates, so we're just going to leave this set to the default. And now what we can do is we can go ahead and click OK at the bottom of the screen, and this will create the new project, and it'll take us to the home screen of SDS2. Now that we're at our home screen for SDS2, we're going to go through the different tabs and the home screen to see what is a part of the home screen. This will be our home tab, our analytics tab, project settings, reports, import, export, utilities, modeling, and drawing editor. And then from there, our home screen, home tab, there's some other tabs as well that we'll go through. Will be learning, what's new, community, resources, contact, and then about. So now we're going to go through our different areas on our home screen. Right now we are on our home tab of our home screen. So over here, this is what our home tab looks like. Off to the right, we have our learning tab, what's new, community, resources, contact, and about. Within our learning tab, we have our help documentation. So this is going to allow us to quickly find answers to common questions within our help documentation. And I'm going to go ahead and click on this link. And what that's going to do is it's going to open up a web browser, and it's going to take us to our help documentation for SDS2. So within here, it's going to automatically take us to the window that we were looking at. So we were looking at our home screen. So that's why we can see a preview of our home screen right here. That's just the section we were looking at. And within here, we can click on different links that we want to learn about or that we may have questions about. So let's say if we wanted to figure something out about project settings, we can go ahead and click on project settings here, and it's going to automatically jump us to the section where it talks about project settings inside of our help documentation. So it's going to give us some more information down here. And we could even go further if we wanted to learn about connections. Say we could come up here and click on the connections link, and it's going to take us to all of the different connections that are inside of SDS2, and we can learn about plate grades, for example, and it's going to take us to that section, and it'll give us some more information there. There's a couple different ways that we can search within our help documentation. So if you wanted to search for things like that by clicking on links, you can do that. You can come up here to the search help and you could type in different keywords or phrases. If you wanted to, you could also hit Control F on your keyboard and you could type in different keywords or phrases in this search bar up here. Or another way we could do it is we could open up our index. So if I click on this index link right here, this is going to list in alphabetical order everything that is in our help documentation. So you could Control F in this page here, search for a keyword that you want to read up on, or if you want to do click on any one of these letters, it'll automatically jump you to that section of our help documentation. Help documentation is going to be pretty important because if you have any questions over SDS2, this is a really good place to start looking and figuring out some of those answers. I'm going to X out of this for now and we'll keep going through our home screen. So below help documentation we have our getting started videos. This will take you to our website and these are just going to be some easy to follow videos that break down our most common tasks. Below that we have our how-to videos. You can get up to speed with new features quickly. This will be videos that are going over the new version of SDS2. Below that we have training programs, and then we also have a spot where we can go see our free webinars from SDS2. Moving on, I'll click on the What's New tab. We have a spot where you can subscribe to our SDS2 newsletter, so you can stay up to date with the latest news, events, and more with SDS2. Below that we have a spot where you can look at our release notes, so you can discover the latest SDS2 technical updates, features, and enhancements for the version that you are working in. We have a spot where you can access our upcoming webinars from SDS2. And then we also have a spot where you can access our SDS2 blog. Next is our community tab. The first one we have here is our SDS2 forums. So this is where you can connect and learn with a community of users who use SDS2. Below that, we have a spot where you can access our free webinars from SDS2. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel, and you can also follow us on LinkedIn. Next is our resources tab. Our resources tab will give you access to our technical support, our SDS2 toolbox, which will include some more tools that are not included with SDS2 by default. You can take a look at our partner integrations. And then lastly, we have our API documentation, which will give you some more documentation on how to write your own tools to be able to add inside of SDS2. Our next tab is our contact. Here's where we could contact support if you ever have any questions. Below that, we have a spot where you can upload your project if you need some assistance on a project, or if support requests you to upload your project, this is where you can come to do that. We have some more support options below that, and we have a spot for our SDS2 resellers. And then lastly, our About tab just gives you some general information like your product name, your architecture, and what version you're working in. The version that we are in right now is 2021.06. And then below that, we have our recent and our pinned projects. So because we only have one job inside of SDS2 right now, we won't see any other recent projects that have been opened, but if we did have other projects, they would just populate in this list down here. And we can also pin projects, so we can pin from our recent projects, or in this case, since we only have one project, I can just come up here and I can click this little pin icon, and we can see that our 2021 online training job will show up in the pinned projects list. If you didn't want that there, we could go ahead and unpin it. I'll leave it pinned for now. If you had another pin project down here that you wanted to switch into, all you would have to do is come down here and double click on the job, and it would automatically make that the active job up here. You would see that name change. Moving on, we have our analytics tab. So because I don't have any members inside of the project, I won't be able to see anything that gets populated down here. But I'm going to go ahead and just click the refresh button down here, and we can see that we have some different fields that populate, but we don't have any members, so we don't have any information that's going to be filled out for these graphs. But we do have the option to sort by all members, by sequence, or by zone. We can look at our different detailing, approval, fabricator, erector, and BIM graphs. We have the option to view this by our member count or by tonnage. And then we do have the option to set estimates. So if you want to see your total member count or tonnage or your different graphs based on the estimates that you would fill out here, you can fill out the member count or tonnage and you could see all that information below. And as we get more members into the project, this analytics tab would become much more useful for us. Next, we have our project settings. Inside of our project settings, we have our different fabricator and job options. All of these will be covered in the upcoming videos, so I'm not going to spend any time looking through any of these tabs right now. I'll just move on to our reports tab. Here's where we can generate the ABM report. We can view any design calculations, whether that is expanded or short. You can generate a report, which would allow you to browse to a specific report, or you can generate your own report template. We also have the option to view and pin our most recent reports. If we take a look at our system reports, there will be some different reports that I can browse to, and that'll give me some different output from our model. So if we wanted to, for example, create a field bolt summary report, this is where we can do that. If I were to click on this, it would just go ahead and run that report. We'd be able to select what we want to choose from our model. And once those reports are ran one time, they would show up in the recent reports list. So there wasn't any data to report for that report because we don't have anything in our model. But as you can see, it did run one time, so now we see that in our recent reports list. And if we wanted to pin that to our pinned reports list, we could come hit this pin icon here. And once we change to our pinned reports, now that field bolt summary shows up there. In this case, I'm just going to go ahead and X out of this so I don't have any reports on my recent or pinned reports. Next, we'll take a look at our import tab. If I select the project transfer, this will bring up a separate window that will allow you to either pack up or unpack a project. So on the left side here is where we would be able to pack up a project to be able to send it to another user who uses SDS2. Here is where we would be able to unpack a project if you were to get another project from someone within SDS2. And when we are packing and unpacking a project, this is going to come from a JFT file type. So that's what you can see right here, this .jft file. A JFT file is an SDS2 proprietary file type. It's basically just a zipped up folder with an extension given to that folder. I'm going to close out of this. Next, we have our status transfer. This will allow us to send in and out our status information. Under that, we have 3D options. We can either import our model, we can import from Revit, or from S3D. And then we also have 2D options as well. We can either import as a reference drawing or as a job standard. If we're importing as a reference drawing or a job standard, that could either be a DWG, a DXF, a .dgn, or a .dxb file type. Next, we'll take a look at our export. We have the same project transfer and status transfer buttons. We have our transmittal tool, and then here we have our CNC information. So if we were exporting any type of CNC information, this is where we would go to do that. We can export our 3D model either as the model here, a Revit to new model, or a Revit to linked model. Below that we have all of our MRP export file types, whether that would be FabTrol, KISS, SPN, EJE, FabSuite, Steel Projects, Built Interchange Format or BIF, P2, Strumis, Advanced Steel, or our Strumis BIM review. And then off over here we have our 2D export, and we can export PDF drawings, our CAD drawings, or if we want to just plot. Next, we'll take a look at our utilities. So inside of our utilities, we have an option for our shape properties. So when we created this, we had a shape file to choose from. That was our India all file, if you remember that. If we wanted to change anything about this file, this is where we would go to customize that file. Next, we have our user and site options. These are going to be options that pertain only to your PC. So we have some different options that we can set inside of here. I'll go ahead and open that up. Inside of our general tab here, we have some different options where we can choose our job fab selection method. We can choose our modeling layout style or our drawing editor layout style. Below here, we have some different input settings. We can change our mouse buttons, some other settings to do with our mouse. We have some different tabs inside of our user and site options. We have our general tab, modeling tab, drawings, toolbars, output, and site. So for our modeling tab, we have some other things that we can come in here and specify. One big one would be our color settings. So here's where you could change your modeling background color, if you want to change your member line color, or even your section size or piece mark color. This is where you can go and do all of that. If we click on our drawings tab, we have some similar options inside of here. We can change our drawing editor background color. Our toolbars is where we'd be able to specify if we want to use any toolbar within our modeling or drawing editor windows. And then we have some other various options down through here. I'm going to go ahead and cancel out of this window. Next, we have our member edit. In here's where we can edit members inside of our modeling right from where we're at here in our utility functions location. We have our update attributes, our customized interface, parametric modeling, and then we have the ability to run a verify and fix. Below that, in our utility functions, we can go into our job repositories, we can change file sizes, convert jobs, we have some general options, change options, some different copy options. We can copy job standard to global standards, or we can copy global standards to job standards. We have the ability to rename project items. We can replace. We can merge jobs. We can delete project items. We have a spot for our plugins manager, our part libraries manager, our joist manufacturer manager, and then a spot for our passwords. Lastly, down here in the lower left corner, we have our other two options. This little cube icon is how you would launch into your modeling window, and then the T-square icon is how you would launch your drawing editor window, which is where all of your drawings are going to live at. Using Litmos, to start you can go to sds2.litmos.com. You would start at basic training day 1. Course materials are found in the Additional References tab. When you're done watching the videos or other applications, use the Next Module button in the upper right of the pop-out window. Exit will take you back to the course overview, and you can review the questions missed in a quiz by going back to the course page and clicking on the results button in the quiz line.